Hi, my name is Mark Anthony Dubois Jr. I was born July 4th, 1986. I'm gonna say thank you for tuning in. Today, I'm gonna talk about something that I said in the video, and someone left a comment that this is something that I was always struggling with, and something that I wanna put my understanding on why I call it eyeballing dogs. Staring at them. Just staring at them creates something strange out of them. It's the same way as touching them, in my opinion, too much, and touching them at the wrong times. But touch, at least it's easier to like remove your hands or put your hands behind your back, but your eyeballs just wanna just keep staring. And I don't wanna humanize some things, but I'm gonna humanize it here to make it makes sense to me this way. When someone is staring at you, so someone looks at you and it's like, oh, hey, hi. When someone looks at you and smiles at you, it's like, oh, hey, hi, you're friendly, hey, how you doing? But someone looks at you and even like smiling at you and then they're staring at you for like 30 seconds, not even that long, 10 seconds, it starts to get awkward. You start to like, what's going on with that person? Like what's happening? What are you doing? And then in reality, what starts to happen to, I would say is most more likely is you kind of go into this sense of like a little bit of dread. Like it goes from like excitement to this like nervousness of, what are you doing? Why are you looking at me like that? What's going on? Or what are you planning on doing to me? Unfortunately, I don't know how your mind works, but mine works in the sense of most cases, unfortunately, I don't know why, it kind of just goes down to the something's wrong aspect as opposed to something's right. If someone is staring at me for 20, 30, 40, 50, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes straight, my mind isn't thinking like, oh, they really like me. They just appreciate how I look. Like, hey, how's it going? No, they're looking at me in a sense of, what are you trying to study from me to take from me in a way? What are you studying from me that you're trying to learn to be able to use to, in worst case, but best case scenario, to get me to react, get me to respond, to get me to something? It's never usually just this like friendly, everything is good to go. So then when I'm thinking of that, my own sense, because I think of just being a child, like when my mom or my dad was eyeballing me, my brother or my sister was eyeballing me, it was always just, especially say my dad, it was always just like, what did I do wrong? What's going on? What's happening? Why are you staring at me like that? What's going on? What is this? And I know that I'm not the only person that feels this way. So when I'm feeling that way, when someone is staring at me, I have to only imagine that my dog has to feel the exact same way. If I look at them, okay, it's cool. Because it's something that I noticed when it comes to, say, dog to dogs. They don't stare at each other. And when they do, it's a dog fight is ready to happen. Anytime you watch your dog staring at another dog and they're just locked eyes, a fight is about to happen. That's just almost like a guarantee. That's how I know when something is about to just happen and when it's real, where it's just, we're just in this, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I don't know what's going on. But when two dogs just stop and just dead set look at each other and they don't flinch, they're just staring directly at each other. Be ready, something's about to happen. Dogs rarely are just out here just looking at each other. They'll glance, they'll move, they'll give it a little look. Because my dogs, in reality, when I really pay attention to them, they're just like through the side of their eye. They're doing their best to not make direct, just straight contact eye to eye. That's, again, I'm telling you, that's when I see dog fights happen. Every other instance, I'm just, it's a little just, and then they just move on. But when it's like, I'm ready to latch onto your neck, I'm ready to try to submit roll you, I'm ready to try to mount on behind you, the dogs are staring. So in that sense, the dogs are, in reality, in my mind, looking at it the same way as we are. Stop looking at me, because it's starting to make you feel uncomfortable. And what the part where I could say is opportunistic of a dog, and some humans, but not all, but some of us will go to a hostile sense. Stop staring at me. And they'll stand up and look at you like, get off me, get away from me, stop doing this to me. And I see some dogs do that as well. But most cases, what happens is, most people and most dogs that I've noticed is you get to that sense of, well, you're looking at me, let me come over there and talk to you to try to like ease this tension, if there is any, or try to figure out like what's going on. So it's that appeasement type stuff that you're gonna go and do. You're gonna go and try to extra butterfly yourself to make yourself like happier and bubbly and like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? To try to figure out like, why is this person staring at me so intensely? And then notice the dog does the same thing. It comes up to you in a sense of like asking for affection, looking for pets, looking for something to like, oh, nothing's wrong, it's okay, because they're petting me. But that's the part where I realize things start to get toxic, I guess I can say. With us as humans, we don't quite go to the extreme that I guess a dog would do. We don't come up and start hugging each other and like, hey, let's go on a date, let's hang out. No, things just kind of end there, and then we just walk and move on our ways. because in that sense, most humans, if you got a person that's just staring at you, they're for the most part gonna like lock out of that, go move on, and something in them is gonna say, I gotta stop this. But for the dog, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure. The only thing that I could say is everything okay? Is everything all right? And the dog wants to put itself in a sense of it's safe, it's good to go. And it knows that if you're just petting it and smiling with it and allowing it to stay on you, the dog is like, oh, okay, everything is fine. So that's the part where things get weird, because the dog is not doing that in the sense of trying to please. It's doing it in the sense of, is everything okay? And that's where, for me, I just started to realize the less that I stopped eyeballing my dogs, the more is not the word, the better everything was getting with how they were like approaching and being around me. Because I was putting too much, in my mind, pressure on them of looking at them and them not understanding why I'm looking at them. And most cases, when we're staring at the dogs, when we're concentrated, when we're focused, this is the thing where it's going to confuse a dog over a human at the end of the day, because the dog is really trying to study our body the most. But when we're just, say, best case scenario, that most of us more likely do this, when I noticed that I was doing this, is when I'm sitting down. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm sitting outside on a chair, I'm sitting wherever I'm sitting, and I'm just looking at the dog. And when I'm doing this, my body is like basically emotionless. I'm not moving, I'm not nothing, I'm just staring at them. And most cases, when we're just really focused and concentrated, our faces kind of have that like, that mean look to it. That I can't say that word, but that resting mean look, that look of just like almost disgust in a way, but just that concentrated look. That concentrated look isn't the look of like, oh, everything's fun, everything's fine. No, we're focused. We're focused in. So we're sitting there focused in, staring. And the dog is looking at us like, the heck's going on? Because I noticed today, especially, I started to pay way more attention to this. When I really stuck, because especially it's the Dalmatian, it's easy, but all my dogs do it the same way. That when I just sit there and I'm focused looking at them, they get to squirming. They literally get moving like this. And then my Dalmatian today, her tail instantly gets going. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, happy, how's it going? But no, she's feeling the waters of, am I in trouble type situation? Because my presence is tough, it's strong. And especially just me, I know me. When I'm just sitting and focused, I know me. That I look, I don't want to use this word because it's not the correct word, but aggressive. I look hostile when I'm just focused doing what I'm doing. When I'm like getting done when I need to get done, I look hostile. I know I do, because I record myself and just see like how I look in certain scenarios, that when I'm really concentrated, when I'm like playing my piano, when I'm like doing stuff, I'm like, don't look at me, don't touch me, don't do nothing. I'm like, it's hostile looking. I know that. And I know that from a lot of people as well. We look very hostile when we're just focused and concentrated. That's why in reality, most cases when we put smiles on, it's not all, most cases I see it's a lie. We're not really like happy to do that smile. We're just doing that in a sense to ease the tension, to make sure that everything is going to be okay. As opposed to just, if most people would just portray who they really are, we would be, in reality, Texas is kind of weird because everyone's always like waving and saying hi to each other, but we're not like smiling really. It's just like, hi, how you doing? Like, it's just, that's what a lot of people here do. But in reality, in the core of who we are, New York City and places like that are like places that are really to the extreme to show what humans are. They don't talk to each other. Like where I grew up in Illinois, Chicago area, we don't smile, we don't wave, we don't say hi, there's no conversation. Shadow, we good. Go home. We good. I don't care about the dog. I'm telling you, I'm here, I got this. Thank you, and go home. Shadow, go home. I got to make sure I get eye contact from him from that. That's the part I'll say, eye contact. Hey, I'm serious right now. I want you to see me. I see you. Okay, we're good to go. We're done. And then we're done. We just move away. But if I sit here and stare at him, that's where that extraness starts to come. But we don't really like smile and say hi. And that's just kind of, in reality, how most humans are. And the way I see dogs are, that's how most dogs are. They say they'll move and they're doing things to not get into conflict, to not have problems. Well, that's something that I can say is when I really think about these concepts compared to like Illinois and Chicago and Philadelphia and a lot of these places where it seems more tense. It's like, how do I say this in an easy way? No one got guns up there. We're in Texas, like everybody got a gun. So it's almost like normal in the South that guns are normal and everybody got them. That we're all just like, hey, I'm friendly. Like, I'm good. Don't worry about me. But in other places, no one, it's like rare. Like pretty much I don't care where you go here. Everybody got a gun everywhere you go all the time. Anytime you go to a restaurant, like I'm almost going to guarantee 70% of the people in that restaurant got guns on them. So it's almost like something that's happened in the South that makes it more of like, hey, hi, I'm good. Like I'm friendly, like I'm fine. Because we know someone's got something on them that can potentially end your life in reality right away. So there's things that I just think about with that. But at the same time, it comes down to that with the dogs the same way. That they do something in this friendly manner. So up front that I can say to a dog is they do a play bow. They're play bowing. They're like, hey, is everything okay? Are we fine? What's going on here? And then when the other dog doesn't do it, it just still keeps standing there. It's like, well, okay, well, I'll move on over there instead. I'm not going to sit here and keep dealing with this. The dogs do the same stuff that we do in reality to see if we're friendly or not. And when we're staring at them, the dog is, in my mind, I don't care what they're thinking or even care what you could be thinking, something in your senses is going, something's wrong. Something's not right. Something wrong. So I started noticing that with my dogs, that I would stare at them and it's like they're looking at me like something's wrong. What's not right? What's going on right now? And it would force them to have to do this, say play bow. And with me, they're just like, well, obviously it's nothing's weird about him. I'm not too scared of him, but what's going on in this scenario that's getting my senses to react in this negative, hostile type way. So they keep trying and trying and trying. So then that's when things can get weary here because you're staring at the dog comes to you. You really don't want the dog with you in that moment because you could be looking at your phone, you could be doing whatever you're doing, but this is the part where things get weird because the dog comes to you then because it's almost like an invite of, is everything okay? The dog comes, checks out, it's okay. And then what happens is you actually say to the dog, no, get off me, get away from me. Now the dog's like, well, that was right. He was looking at me and I knew he pushed me away and told me no, to get off me, to get away from me. Now the dog is like, that eyeball does mean something weird is going on now. This comes down to the concept of just everything that I've just noticed with, it's I'll say mixed signals. And that's what a lot of, everything just kind of seems to float into the same thing. Too much obedience, trying to just dial it in too much, you're giving mixed signals. Too much eyeballing, you're giving too much mixed signals. Too much praise and touching them, you're giving mixed signals. You're too much jumping all on you and looking all on you, you're giving mixed signals. That's where the boundaries have to come in place of this is what I want and this is what I don't want. When you're eyeballing a dog, you're basically inviting it to do something. It has to react. It has to respond. It can't just sit there and allow you to just stare at it for 2 straight minutes. As much as you want to look at them, this is the part where it gets even more conflict because in reality, the kind of best time we really like looking at them is when they're asleep. And that's kind of the worst time to, in reality, mess with them. You're interrupting them from doing something that they need to do. This is the part with me, especially. I don't want to humanize it, but just think about this for a moment. You're asleep in your bed. You're nice and curled up, nice and warm, doing what you're doing. And you got a strange figure like me come up and standing over the top of your bed, staring down right at you. 2, 3, 4 feet away from you, just staring, looking at you. You be asleep, and I'm just staring at you. If you happen to open an eyeball and see me standing there looking at you, what's going to happen? Most cases, most people, you're going to freeze in that moment. You're not going to know what to do. You're going to hesitate. You're like, what's happening? Because I got the upper hand here. I got the way upper hand. I'm way up here. You're down there. I could do whatever I do to you, comfortable in your sheets. You're vulnerable in that moment. You can't move. Now I got the upper hand here of what's going to happen next. So what most cases you would freeze, but then you would start to, most people, there's going to be the few out there they'll instantly start to fight and start to go into this battle. But most people, you're going to start to plead and beg. Is everything okay? Why are you here? What's going on? You're going to start this conversation of making sure that I'm not here. I'm not a threat. I'm not here to hurt you. It's going to be instant that's going to happen. That's just what I imagine with the dogs. Instant, they got to go through this process. So if they're sitting there sleeping, they open eye. Oh, I'm like, oh, wow, what you looking at? Why are you looking at me? Why are you doing this to me? And then they have to go into, because they don't know how to speak it out loud of saying, hey, how's it going? No, they got to go into doing that conversation. Is everything okay? And one way a dog knows everything is okay if you sit there and pet them. So they were asleep, having nice little doggy dreams and chilling, doing what they was doing, to this, whoa, freak out, like, what's happening? And then they go over to you, and then in reality, what happens? Oh, go back to sleep. The dog doesn't understand that language of us telling it to go back to sleep. I don't know if we could tell a dog to really go to sleep. We could tell it to go lay down and go settle or something, but to actually just go to sleep, I'm not sure a dog understands that language. So we're saying, no, get off me, man. Go back to sleep. You're doing good. Go back to sleep. Now the dog's like, man, what's happening? What's going on? This person is giving me all these mixed signals, and I don't know what's going on right now. That's where I see things get weird. It gets weird. It gets really weird. So for me, I had to stop. This is something that I'm going to say, that there's things that if you don't like what's going on with your dog, you have to change something. You can't just think I could do everything that I was doing and be able to get some change of results. It doesn't work that way. Something has to change. But like a video before I was talking about, it doesn't need to be something that you feel guilt over. You don't need to feel guilt. That's where, for me, like going to the route of corrections and all that, if I gotta do more than just say, hey, Shadow, all done, we're good, everything's fine, thank you, then I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't feel comfortable going further than that. So I'm doing everything in my power to just stick with that. And even if I gotta say, hey, I said knock that off, I gotta up that voice a little bit, up that, like, that sharpness behind it, that pushiness in my voice to say, hey, no, we're done. I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with going to anything more. I'm not fine with I need to put a corrective collar on. I'm not fine with I gotta put a leash on and do this and do that with it. I'm not fine with that. I feel guilty doing that. But I do know that I had to change something. And something that I know I had to change is giving my dog mixed signals. The mixed signals of touching it too much, looking at it too much, just at the end of the day, straight up, interacting with it too much, just allowing them to just be, allowing them to just hang out, giving them, for one, something that I always highly recommend to everyone. Give your dog a safe place, a place that you don't touch, you don't go to. So for me in my house, since it's just me and my couch is, it's a decent size, I only need my half. The other half, I never sit over there. I never go over there. I never do anything over. That's your guys' place. If you're there, no one's gonna mess with you. No one's gonna touch you. No one's gonna look at you. That's your safe place. And sometimes, I mean, if I got a lot of people over, then I just put them into a room, or I got a little spot over here. But most cases, people are there. My dogs they like to just mingle and hanging out anyways. They don't really care. They're not going to sleep in that moment. But I always make sure that they have a safe place. It's something I've always done with people before, with getting the crate to be a safe place. Because sometimes I didn't really say it up front to people when I first started working dogs, especially the first year. I was kind of always dancing around stuff. But if husband and wife or parents and child are fighting a lot in the house, and the dog is feeding off that, and it's kind of like in this anxious state because of that fight that's going on, dogs will get anxious because people in the household are fighting. I see this so much. So I just remove the dog. I say, go to the crate, buddy. Go hang out there. If you hear this and you see this, that's got nothing to do with you. Go over there. You do not need to interact with that. You go to your safe place. No one's going to go into that crate. And then some families, I have to say to the children, like, this, you are not allowed to crawl in there. This is not your house. This is not your playhouse. You don't take your fake kitchen stuff in there, and you're not camping out in there. That's for the dog. Only the dog is allowed in there. And then the dog has a place to go when it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. It goes in there. So my dogs all know that. Said I use a go home cue. They go home, they go there, and no matter what you're doing in your home, and my dog's home is a big home. They got a house just as big as my house in reality. But there's nothing they could do wrong in their home. Nothing they could do wrong. And anything that, if they are doing wrong, like there's videos where they're chewing on stuff I don't want them to chew on, I don't do anything but say, hey, can you stop that? Can you stop that? And then I'll go remove it. There's no hostile nothing there. That's like our peaceful safe zone. Our safe zone. Everything is good to go here. Everything is safe in here. And I've gotten that by just leaving them alone, letting them do what they need to do. If they're getting into something, I remove it. That's where the crate was kind of a cool thing. I never had to shut the door with the dog. It's a neutral spot. I never had to put anything in there. I never had to do anything. It would just go lay in there and just settle down for a moment and then get out and realize, oh, okay, that wasn't about me. Because when people start to get loud and start to do stuff, the dog starts to just think that it's involved in it. Especially if you're a person like me in reality, that you've been raising your dogs by yourself and then all of a sudden you bring somebody new in. When that new person comes in and you start to talk to them, your dog is thinking you're talking to them, because most cases they know that you're on the phone and there's no one there, so they know to like zone that out. But when you get to talking in the house, most cases you're talking to that animal. So when you start to talk to someone else in the house, the dog is thinking that you're talking to it. So you got to really give that dog a level of separation to let it know, like, hey, no, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to them over there. So just you back out. And a lot of this comes down to the things of just giving it too much information. We're eyeballing it too much, touching it too much, just interacting too much. Just have times that it's like we're not doing nothing. Because in reality, when I just really watch dogs, like I can sit here and just look at mine right now. So I got what, there's 4 of them just sitting right there. They're not like talking to each other, hanging out with each other, interacting with each other. They don't really do that all that much. They'll have their time that they do that, and then a time that they're just, you're asleep, I'm asleep, we're done. That's it. That's what they primarily do all the time. But in most households, with most people with their dogs, You're touching it the entire time. You're holding it. It's sitting right next to you too much sometimes. Can some dogs handle that? Yeah. But if this is the thing, if you're not having problems, cool. You know, do what you want in reality. Straight up, there's nothing to change. But if you are having problems, the changes that I know to implement that give real help, like, are simple, but not easy to do. It's simple to, or easy, but not simple, whatever, which way. But it's easy for me to just say, oh, I'm just gonna stop messing with the dog for a little while and allow the dog to just feel comfortable, feel like it's not on duty to do stuff all the time. Because most of y'all, you don't have like a active service dog that needs to go get your prescription for you if something is wrong with you. But even in that sense, I would want my dog a little bit away from me to be watching me. So it's not just, it's doing its work, it's doing its job. It's like over there and it's studying me. And not in the sense that I'm studying it all the time, that it needs to be able to sense that. But most of the time when you are with your dog in the home, you're like on the dog all the time. And if you're having problems, if you're having issues with, like, my dog is reactive with barking at people and barking at dogs and doing this, you need to put in what I want to say a new level of boundaries so that dog can understand who you are. Because a lot of that, the dog may not be, this is the thing, the dog may not be there snuggling with you because it wants to. It may be doing it because it has no choice but to. This is the hardest thing, especially I don't really work for a whole lot of men, which is weird because my analytics state this past 6 months has changed drastically on my channel. It's like 85% is men and 15% is women, where it used to be about a 50-50 split, but my actual going to people's houses, it's like 85% women and 15% men. So dudes are, I hear you, you're looking behind closed doors trying to find and get assistance with what you need help with. And most cases, I'm going to say you can find that behind. You don't need to like put yourself out there to say I need help, because I know it's hard. It's hard. I don't know why. For us dudes, it's hard for us to say I need help. It's hard. It's just like one of the hardest things on the planet to say. Like, we're, for the most part, like, I got it. I can figure it out. I'm going to be good to go. It's just not in our nature to like seek somebody else, especially. I don't know why, but I guess this is just how our world is raised up, especially a man having a woman come in and try to help him like fix something. And then especially a man having a younger man come and try to help him with something that's going on with him. It's like the hardest for guys to just take any information from. But it's something that they may not be doing what they're doing because they want to. They're doing it because they don't have a choice. They don't have, you're smothering the dog and not giving it an option to be able to just want to because it wants to. This is the thing that I will say that I noticed about human-to-human relationships. The more couples are together, the more they don't last together long. And that's a weird thing that I can say almost the same with maybe with the dog, but the dog doesn't get a chance to like really just stand up for itself and just say, I'm fed up, I'm gone. They don't get a choice. We lock them in the houses. And if the dog starts to break out of the backyard, what do? We build a better fence. And then what do? We put microchips in them and we put GPS trackers on them and we go deep to make sure that thing can't get away from us. But if your wife or your husband is like, I'm done, you're smothering me, you're too much on me and I just can't deal with this, they gone. They're not going to look back. They're going to disappear. They're going to leave you. And I just noticed that when we do that to people, I have to almost guarantee that the same stuff has to happen with the dog. Maybe not all the animals, but especially the dog. We're smothering it too much. You're on it too much. You're playing games with it too much. It's the mind games, I guess I could say, too much. Just get off the dog. Get off the dog. Let the dog just be all on its own. Let the dog just be. Just allow the dog to just have its space and you have your space. And then you'll notice that in most cases, your dog will like actually like once you just stop messing with it, this is the part that I'm going to say. You're not going to feel guilty because you're doing something wrong to it, but you're going to have this sense of like, that's the best word to use. I don't know why this first came to me, but it may not be the right word to use, but it's the best word to use. Lonely. Because you're used to your dog always on you. You're used to staring at him all the time, getting something from that by doing that. But you're going to feel lonely. You won't feel guilty that you're doing something that's going to hurt them or is going to damage them. You're going to feel lonely because you're going to actually notice, most of y'all, if you're having problems with certain things with your dog, I'm going to tell you this right now. It's going to make you feel lonely. Something big jumping in these trees out here. It's kind of creepy sounding. Because you're going to notice that dog is going to actually want to be further from you. It's going to actually, like, without you calling them and you just leave the dog alone, allow the dog to come to you if it wants to, you're going to notice that it's not going to want to come to you. You're going to notice that it's going to want space. You're going to notice that it's going to go lay in the other room Because a lot of times, I'm guilty of this. I don't do it anymore. But when the dog would like go off into another room in the house, for instance, I'm like going down there like, what are you doing? What's going on? What you doing back here? As opposed to just saying, you know what? My house is in a safe manner. I know there's nothing for you to really chew on in here, and y'all don't chew anything anyway, so go ahead. You want to go in the room, go in the other room. You don't need to be right here next to me. You want to stay over there, stay over there. And I've noticed that through time, at first, I'm telling you, it's going to get in your feelings a little bit, that your dog is not going to want to be around you the way you thought that it was. And then the dog will eventually start to get closer and closer and closer to you when it decides and says, okay, I want to be here. I want to do this. It's something that you have to change something that you're doing. And for me, I don't like doing this with working on cars, but you got to do the cheapest. Sorry, it's just like sitting in a new area, not really a new area, but a new spot. It just introduces you to new things when you're in a new spot. And when you start to hear some new things, you start to question like, what the heck is that? And I think I got a huge owl that's in these trees right here. And I'm not saying that I'm afraid of too much, but I don't know what it is about these owls, but they creepy looking. They big eyes and they staring at you. It's a creepy, huge mess. Them birds, because one got stuck in my chicken coop once. Its body was my body. The thing was huge. Its wings was like same as me. Its wings probably was even longer than what my arms were. And it's them things is kind of creepy. And they sneak up on you and they quiet. And I hear something moving over there and something big jumping around in the trees back there. And it's like, what the heck is going on right now? But sorry, I got way off topic because my sense is kicking. I don't have my dog with me right now. When my dog's with me, I really don't care. I know he'll fight a bird away. That's something in me that I don't need no lethal weapon of weaponry. I got a dog with me, and the dog always makes me feel very comforted and very just relaxed and chill and calm because he knows more than I know. So when he hears that sound, he's already like, I'm going to go check that out, and I don't need to worry about it. When I'm out here by myself, it's like, what's going on right now? But the big thing that I do know is when we stop doing, we got to start with the simplest thing that's not going to like stop looking at your dog and stop touching your dog. That'll cost no money at all. No money at all. I'm telling you, no, $0. You don't need to go to the store. You need to look nothing up. You don't need to find nothing. You don't need to do nothing, but get yourself some self-discipline to stop doing one thing. And this is the one thing that I will say, because this is something that, I mean, this is a common theme by a lot of dog trainers. Even the Cesar Millan says it. No look, no touch, no something. I forgot what the third one was. But don't look at them, don't touch them, and just leave them alone. And you'll watch things get better. Why? It's a very interesting thing of why of the beginning of this video I'm saying is I think that we're putting pressure that the dog is confused and we are giving it misinformation of thinking that we are like, what's going on basically? What's happening? And it forces the dog to go into that fight or flight. And what most cases it's going to do is it's going to do appeasement things. It's going to say, oh, it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything is all right. So it's going to stay there with you. But when you stop doing that, allow the dog to know, hey, there's nothing wrong here. There's nothing going on. There's nothing that you're in trouble with. There's nothing there's nothing happening. Then the dog is like, oh, okay, well, everything is fine. And then they start to detach. This thing where I'm going to say that I might make a whole nother video on this on why personally I believe that dogs start to become anxious, and especially anxious when you leave and stuff like that. Because I've been paying real close attention to this with a lot of people and a lot of dogs. That I believe it also is a huge thing with looking at them and touching them. Because the dog is attached to you, and it's not attached to you in the correct way. It's attached to you in a negative way. And you got to detach the dog. The dog needs to be okay by itself. Detach them to say, hey, you know, I'm just going to ignore you and you're fine and you're there. If you're going to ignore your dog in the house while you're there and the dog is fine with being on its own, you can leave and the dog is fine. But if you're walking room to room and all the time, so let me add more to what I'm saying right here. If you can't say to your dog, stay here, and you leave and the dog stays there, and the dog always comes to you and it's like a fight, or you got to like lock a door, or you got to put the dog in a crate to be able to go room to room in your house, and your dog won't just stay there, you got to work on that. And that's going to come down to leaving the dog alone. Stop eyeballing the dog, stop touching the dog, just leave the dog alone. When the dog is asleep, please leave the dog alone. Don't look at them, don't touch them. I know it's just the most cutest, adorable little thing, especially this all starts probably hardcore when they're puppies, because when a puppy is sleeping, it's just a fascinating thing to watch a puppy sleep. especially a happy puppy sleep, because they're just belly up, just doing what they're doing, laid out. It's just, you want to go take 1,000 pictures, I get it. But in reality, that's probably setting you up for failure in the future, because you're putting too much on the dog that the dog is like, what's going on? What's happening? What do I need to do? And you need to detach from you. You need to get that dog to know everything is fine. It's okay. Thank you. It started off being kind of loud out, but now I got quiet all of a sudden. It's the quietness out here that I think that was one of the most challenging things for me. It was the first day I moved out here and slept that night out here for the first time. It was so quiet. I'm not used to quiet. I grew up with a train in my almost backyard, honking and blaring all the time, people walking, cars going all the time. It was just always loud. It was loud all the time. It'd be 2 o'clock in the morning and it's just traffic, just flowing, honking and going. And it's just always been loud everywhere I've been, except for here. And it's quiet. When it's quiet, you can start to hear some things. And not even just that, but you can start to smell some things. Everything starts to change. The slightest little noise, you're like, what was that? And then you start to realize like the weight behind what you're hearing. Because that's what makes it not so scared anymore. Because that's why right now something weird is going on, because there's something big with weight that's moving. And that's what's creepy. I'm fine with a little bird and a little thing because they make a noise, or a little mouse or a little something, they make a noise. But you can hear the difference when it's something big. Something much more than just a little critter that is nothingness. And that's what's weird. That's weird that like my senses in reality are getting more heightened and aware with the more quiet and isolated that I try to get myself to be. And that's something that is where I have a thing in me that I believe is we're messing the senses of the dogs up by doing that exact opposite of what I just stated. That we're staring at them and touching them and doing too much, that we're not allowing the dogs to just be able to rest, to be able to just be in peace and know that they have a place of just safety, that they're good to go. Because I know your intentions may be good to be looking at them, but it's weird. It's weird to stare at somebody or something. It's weird. It's very strange. And if your dog is staring at you, in most cases, they're wanting something. And in most cases, they're wanting something, they're like studying you to take something that in reality you don't want to give them, such as, most cases I'm going to say it's food, like treats. They're looking at you. This is the part why I don't allow my dogs to even look at me while I'm eating my food. You could be right next to me, because my dogs will lay right there, right next to me, but they can't look at me while I'm eating because they're just staring at me. And that pressure it's not healthy. So my dog is basically doing what I'm doing to them, and we're doing it back and forth to each other. So I know what it feels like when the dog is staring at me, and it's like it's wanting something. And at the same time, I can say is I know, I never know 100%, but especially if I'm eating, I know why they're staring at me. But when there's nothing going on and you're just staring right at the dog has to start to figure out like, well, what the heck is going on? Because I've seen it. I do it to my dogs sometimes just to do little test things here and there. I look at them and they get to looking around. Like, they looking at me? Like, what's going on with me? And then that's when the tail gets going. The tail get going, they're like, oh, hi. Oh, hey, hi. Oh, you are looking at me. And then when you could look at them and leave it alone and we're good to go. And they're like, oh, okay, hi. And then they go right back, lay back down. But when they've noticed and they're aware that we're staring at them, now things start to get weird. The tail gets to going. They get to like wiggling a little bit, and they get to like, let me try to get closer to you a little bit. It's not because it's not a healthy thing. It's a negative thing in my mind that I'm seeing from that I see that from a lot of people, that like, it just, when the dog gets nervous, it's coming to you for this, like, touch it to know that everything is fine. And the dog, I don't even think humans, even at the same time, we can register the differences. This is why if your dog is nervous outside, don't touch them. It's the same thing. So if your dog is nervous of that, or if it's nervous of you, it doesn't know how to distinguish the difference. It's just, it's getting touched and it's getting negatively reinforced even further into it. It can't say, oh, it's just my human friend, or it's just like a random person out there. I don't think it knows the difference. And that's why it's a kind of a universal thing. When the dog is scared and nervous, don't touch it, don't stare at it. Don't do anything with it if the dog is nervous. If the dog is excited and happy, if it's too excited, leave it alone, because you don't want that either. When the dog is just right where you want them, just go ahead and touch that dog and do whatever you want.